back to International Business. Today is our last day, and I would like everyone to know that although in the United States we are not allowed nor should we participate in any kind of corrupt activities, I will say that Mr. Ben Etzioni brought me some empanadas today. I don't know how many A's there are going to be in this class, but I can pretty much assure you that Ben Etzioni is probably going to get an A+. Did I say that out loud? Oh, goodness. Okay. Anyways, just kidding. All jokes aside, today is our last day. I feel I'm sad. Today is not. I love teaching. I love teaching you guys. You guys have been fantastic. And without any further ado, before I really get into the class, I just wanted to tell everybody it really has been my distinct honor and my privilege to teach you, transfer some of my knowledge regarding international business, and I do sincerely mean that. And the last thread of that comment will be basically, do not hesitate to contact me at any point, if it's in 3 years or 4 years or in 2 months or in 2 days. If you have a question regarding international commerce or business or the flow of funds, the velocity of money, entrepreneurship, economics, email me, call me, text me. I say that sincerely. So please do not by any means hesitate at all. All right, now, without any further ado, today is really going to be more of a review. It's going to be more of a review and a discussion. So I would like everybody, including Mr. Ben Etzioni here, to try to give me as much information as possible regarding some of the topics that I'm going to go over starting from week 1. So let me ask you this. Who is the hegemon? We are. The United States. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Artemis. And I would like everybody, even though Ben is here and you guys have a little bit of a delayed response, please put it up there just so that I can see it. And this isn't a political statement. It's not a patriotic statement. It's really a fact. Right now, it's the United States. And what is it that precipitates us being the hegemon? Why are we the hegemon? Why is the United States the top of the food chain when it comes to global commerce? Innovation. And defend that. Why you can't just say, you know, Senor Ben, we just dream better than everybody else. What is it that is the cause of that? The hire and fire mentality. Excellent. Thank you guys online. Keep it coming. The hire and fire mentality. We are not comfortable working for a company for 30 years anymore. It just doesn't happen where you go off and you work and you get a gold watch at the end of your tenure. It does not happen as much anymore, or at least I wouldn't count on it. And we also have a couple of other aspects to us that I believe are critical to us being the hegemon. And one of them is what? There are two more besides innovation, two more characteristics that lend themselves to the United States being the hegemon. What are they? What might they be? When we talked about the management structure, vertical versus horizontal, what is it that we are here in the U.S.? That's right. Thank you, gentlemen. We are horizontal in our management structure. We have a flat management matrices, which lends itself to communication, collaboration. Remember that if you're in the elevator, or if I'm in the elevator with Dean Montoya, you know, I can give her a suggestion, you know, professionally. I can serve up a discussion and not fear that I am out of line. In fact, I know that she wants to hear, because it's all about continuous improvement, right? And that's comforting to me. And the last one would be diversity. You know, we are a melting pot, but more importantly, what does that mean? I mean, what does that mean? And what it means is that companies that have more diversity, within their organization outperform homogeneous corporations by about 30%. 30%. Good afternoon, Mr. Maxwell. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to let you know that I did get some pastries from Ben, and I don't know if that's going to affect his grade in terms of getting an A or an A+, but it will be in consideration. I keep thinking out loud here. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so Sugar Rush. It's the Sugar Rush. That's right. Okay, so yes, hints, and we'll talk about the final exam a little bit at the end of class. But what is it that I use, or that we use now, to define globalization? Ben, can you physically show me? That's it. That's right. This is globalization. It's the threads that bind our economies together. And the threads that I'm talking about are what? What are those three primary threads? The democratization of three primary threads. Artemis is typing. Knowledge, communication, technology, information, technology, and finance. Information, technology, and finance. Those are the threads that bind our economies together. Information, technology, and finance. That trifecta, and I will do this for Ben's sake, because I know he loves these, as do I. Information, technology, and finance. The three together really precipitate globalization on a larger scale, much larger than even 10 years ago. The triangle of doom. The triangle of doom. Yes. That's what I'm going to start. I'm going to start calling it the triangle of doom from now on. I like it better than just calling it a triangle. So it is now, from here on out, I knight this triangle, the triangle of doom. All right, now, we talked about doing business abroad, and we talked about a Venn diagram, and we talked about Proteus. Proteus was a Greek figure who adapted to his environment. And the three characteristics that I'm looking for are knowledge, behavioral skills, and mindfulness. And mindfulness, I'm going to put an asterisk by it, because what is mindfulness? What is mindfulness? Think of it in terms of, yes, I love pies. Maybe there you go. I love pies because they are cut into triangles of doom. Randy says sensitivity. Give me a little more than that, Randy. I like where you're at. You're starting. You got a very good starting point. What is mindfulness? Cultural awareness. You're in the right cultural sensitivity. Okay. You're all very, very close. Consideration for others. The market. Now, Maxwell, you're getting someplace. Think of negotiations. I walk into a foreign corporation and I am asking for certain terms and they say no. What does that mean? It's the beginning of the negotiation. The no factor, as Artemis says. The no factor. This is all about interpretation. The ability to observe and interpret. The ability to observe and interpret. Now, in the U.S., because we don't do a lot of negotiations, we have to really put on our global hat when we do business abroad. We really have to concentrate and know that the word no means begin. The word no means begin. I can't get my mind off of these empanadas. I'm going to have to take a break and show you guys what an A looks like. Okay. Moving right along. When negotiating, transitioning right from mindfulness, when negotiating, give me some steps. And this is going to be on the final exam. When we're listening, I just gave you one of the answers. When we're negotiating, what is one of the things that we need to be cognizant of? What is one of the things that we need to be doing? Make sure you're talking to the decision maker. Make sure you're talking to the decision maker. Even if you ask, and you need to ask. But I've had it said before where they led me to believe that they were the decision maker. Come to find out 24 hours later that they weren't. Yeah, but oftentimes what happens is you'll be met with somebody who will say, I'm going to be such and such is busy for the next day, or they got called away, and you end up negotiating with them, and that ends up tiring you out. And so by the time they actually get around to the decision maker coming in, you're somewhat perturbed. And the beauty about negotiations is they are looking for those signals from you. They are looking for you to be perturbed. They're looking for you. They're looking to see that fatigue. They want to hear the sighs. They want to hear the, oh, you got to be kidding me attitude. And that's what you don't want to give them. You want to be as professional as possible and move right along, transition into the negotiation as if nothing had ever happened. Don't show emotion. Don't show emotion. Overload them with sugar. That means empanada. You can bring empanadas. That's not a bad thing. Don't do this though. I will tell you this. This is something I haven't taught you yet. It is a good move to bring something from your part of the world to theirs. So for instance, if I'm going to Bombay, or if I'm going to Beijing, or if I'm going to Europe, bring them something from wherever it is. If you're in Illinois, or if you something that says something about your region of the world. But when you give it to them, and I ran into this, and I was not aware this is a real world mistake. I gave them, when I was in Bombay, I gave a family that I was staying with, my business partner's family, I brought the mother a gift, and it was a Southwestern piece of art, Native American piece of art. And I had it. I was very proud to give it, and she accepted it. And I said to her, go ahead and open it. You know, if you like, you can go ahead and open it right now. She blushed. It's not customary in a lot of cultures to open the present in front of you. It's just not done, especially in India. And so I did not know or realize that. And I kind of pressed it a little bit. Like I thought that she was just being polite or courteous, but that she could open it. So I said it again. No, please, you know, open it. You know, because in the United States, we do that, right? You know, it's okay to open up presents in front of everyone. And it's just not a custom that is practiced in a lot of other cultures. So she ended up taking it into the back room or into, you know, another part of the house, and then came back. And I was a little confused, but I just moved right along. You know, I didn't really think much of it. I didn't find out until later at dinner that it wasn't customary to open up presents in front of everyone or in front of the individual giving the present. So anyway, neither here nor there. Just remember that as part of your acculturation. Now, we talked about not showing emotion. We talked about being a good listener. Somebody said something about being self-aware, maybe, or somebody said something about awareness. How about empathy? What is empathy, quickly? Put yourself in their shoes. And we're not talking about sympathy. We're talking about empathy. And why do we want to take a little deeper dive? Why do we want to put ourselves in their shoes? If we know, not compassion, Maxwell, not compassion. There you go, Maxwell. Redeems himself. Another bite of the empanada for Maxwell. Exactly. Understand their needs. Understand how they think. If you understand where they're coming from, you can tailor your negotiations to their mindset. All right? If you know how they think, in my opinion, that's about half the battle. That's about half the battle. There are lots of other ways that we talked about negotiations, things that you're going to see, temperatures changing in the room. You're going to see in China that the average negotiation, I believe, was what? How many days? 3? In the U.S., it's what? 1. And it's probably even less than that. But the reality of it is, it's going to be in between 5 and probably 7 days in another country. Maybe 3 to 5, 3 to 7 days. Let's say 3 to 7 days. So during the first 3 days, you're paying for a hotel. You're paying for a driver or a car or a taxi. You're paying for food. Do not even think about opening up negotiations before that time frame. If you're in Mexico, we have a very close relationship and we share a border, right? In Mexico, it's going to be, because they understand we're American, it's going to be probably still a day. They want to get to know you. But if they had their druthers, it would be closer to 3 days, most likely.
You negotiate by the rules of the country with social negotiations.
If they come here, they're expecting a lot of hospitality. a lot of hospitality. And I can tell you that in India, and I know a lot of you have done business or are doing business or thinking about in India, and China for that matter, the amount of hospitality you're going to receive is going to be somewhat shocking. It's going to be, there's going to be a lot of it. And they're proud of their culture. And they're wanting to show their culture. They're wanting to take you places. They're wanting to show you dinner. Have you share dinner with them at certain places. And Canada asks about, or Artemis asks about Canada. In Canada, it's very much, well, you have to bifurcate Canada, if you ask me, the East and the West. So you have the French, which is on the East Coast, and you have the non-French on the West Coast. In Canada, if you're going to be going to Montreal, you're going to be going and doing business over there, you're going to probably need a couple of days. You're going to need at least a day, 2 days to do that wine meet and greet. In the western part, although they wouldn't like me saying it, they're much more American, or we do business similarly. That's probably a better way of saying it. But be aware of all the negotiation tactics that will be coming your way. Be aware of the negotiation tactics, translators that already speak English. Food deprivation on the last day. The temperature moving up and down in your conference room, etc., etc. Now, there you go. Wow. Don't make a decision based on a deadline. If your flight is scheduled to leave in an hour, you should have 3 days ago started thinking about preparations of extending that flight for another couple of days. You're going to need to be flexible, not only with the cultures that you're working with, but you're going to need to be flexible with your time. Because they know that you have a deadline. They're going to want to press that deadline to get you to acquiesce into their negotiations, into what they are looking for. These are some of the challenges, but they're also some of the opportunities of doing business globally. These are some of the challenges, but they're also opportunities. I want to talk a little bit about the flow of funds. Tell me a little bit about what I mean by the flow of funds. Yeah, don't be bullied. Don't let anybody, and it's not so much bullied, because I will tell you in other countries, Artemis, it's a lot more subtle than that. There's a lot more finesse involved. So they will almost kill you with kindness by starving you out, or by changing the temperature, or something to get you to show emotion. So it's going to be finesse. That's how they're going to most likely do it. Okay? It's going to be finesse. So what is it? What was the question I just asked? The flow of funds. Tell me about the flow of funds. What does that mean to you? What am I talking about? What is the flow of funds? Well, that's the question, Artemis. What is the flow of funds? Somebody online, give me a description. What is the flow of funds? And you want to know how you make money? You understand where the money is going. Where is the money going? I think it was somebody like, yeah, the dollar or the flag follows the dollar, right? The flag follows the dollar. Where is the money going? What markets is the money going to? I mean, think about it in a local sense first. If you're having some issues globally, think about it from a local sense. Here, I can say in Arizona, we have seen a lot of money being pumped into the economy. In what sector over the last 3 years? What sector have we seen a ton of money come into Arizona? Exactly. Housing. So we have seen money coming in from California and Canada. If you can get there first, that's the key, right? If you were able to buy several properties or invest in something a few years ago, man, you'd be killing it, right? But at some point, the markets start to attenuate, and that's what we're seeing also, I think. Maybe not. It could still be going up quite a bit. But Randy states the velocity of money. So there are two aspects to this. Number one, the flow of funds. So the flow of funds is where is the money going to be going? What market are we going to be seeing money go into, and what sector of that market? So in the United States, we saw a huge rush to invest into real estate over the last 2 to 3 years. So the flow of funds have increased also. Let me ask you this question before I get into the second aspect of this, which is the velocity of money. Who controls the flow of funds? Where do the flow of funds come from? Where do the flow of funds come from? The Fed, they may be a cause. The government, not the government. Investors somewhat. What's that? Mothers, no, although they are the most powerful person in the world. Not moms. Tim had the same answer. One thing I want you to know, and this is really about economics. So economics is a soft science. Okay? If it were a real science, what works in the classroom would work in the real world. And in a classroom, you can create all of the models and outcomes that you possibly can conjure up. But the reality of it is, you've heard the saying, if you ask an economist, if you ask 100 economists the same question, you're going to get what? 100 different answers, right? That's not a science to me. If you ask a biologist or 100 biologists the same question, the outcome is going to be the same. Or if you ask a physicist, or if you ask somebody in the real sciences, that's going to be, you're going to have the same outcome, right? Don't get lost in the noise when you're listening to CNBC or CNN or whatever it is, MSNBC, the squawk on the street. You're even whatever, magazines you subscribe to in terms of understanding the economy. Banks control the velocity of money. Everything else is noise. Everything else is noise. You're going to hear a lot of arguments about, well, we need to lower interest rates. Well, we need to lower unemployment, or we need to make the dollar stronger against the euro, whatever it is. You're going to hear a lot of rhetoric about what's going to fix the economy. What is going to fix the economy? It's all noise. It's all noise. You keep your eye on banks. You keep your eye on banks loaning money. Because banks and debt, I should say, is what makes the world go round. It's not the stock market. It's not the stock market, it's banks. Now, one of the critical factors that we can look at is the Fed. The Fed just announced that, towards the end of this year, they're going to stop their quantitative easing, which is them buying back about $80 billion worth of notes a month. $80 billion a month. What you can infer from that is, or interpret, is that banks are going to start tightening their lending requirements again. And when banks start tightening, so you tell me the answer. If banks start tightening their lending requirements or making them a little more, the qualifications are going to be a little bit higher, we'll say. What's that going to do to the velocity of money? Slow it down. Absolutely, because you have less people qualifying to obtain a loan, which means that you're going to have less people being able to put that money into their business or buy property or whatever it may be. You're absolutely right, Tim. You have less capital for investment risk, and that's absolutely true. You have less capital for investment, harder for SMEs to expand. That's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. And you know, it's interesting because in my opinion, in my myopic view, banks have been back to their bad behavior. Did you know that banks want to loan money? We all know that. But they were loaning money to private equity like it was going out of style. And private equity firms, typically the old model, and the model has changed somewhat, was 75, when they make an acquisition of a company, 75% of the acquisition is bank debt. 25% is their own skin in the game. That's it. That's it. And banks love those loans because they're much bigger, and it doesn't take much more to maintain a $100 million loan than it does a $1 million loan. So if it doesn't cost you that much more to maintain your let's say relationship with that borrower, then why would you want to give a $5,000 loan or $1 million loan to a small to medium-sized enterprise? Why not just continue to give it to the biggest companies out there? And that's part of the problem, is that banks continue to loan money to the larger fish. And there's a dichotomy here because it's small business that drives the U.S. economy, isn't it? In my opinion, I think it's somewhere closer to 80% of our U.S. GDP is SMEs. Think about that.
Larger companies, less risk.
Larger companies potentially, you know, and that's theoretically, I should say, have less of a risk of default. But when they do default, they crash and burn pretty badly, and that has an effect on what? On all of us. It has an effect on all of us. You've seen and heard those statements, too big to fail. That's what happens when banks loan money to individuals or companies that aren't credit worthy, or they're not. It's more than credit worthy. It's more than credit worthy. J.P. Morgan, who bailed the United States out in the early 1900s, was being asked by a congressman, is collateral and credit the best way to loan money to an individual or a company? Is it collateral? Is it credit? And J.P. Morgan said no. It's character. It's character. So be careful who you're loaning money to, and then watch, if you can, watch who it is that the banks are loaning money to. What kind of characters are they loaning money to? All right? And you know, I have experience doing some hard money loans. And at the end of the day, for me, it's about character. So when I'm loaning funds, or when I have loan funds, it was about, okay, am I going to be paid back? All right. Now, what is it that I require you to know when you're launching internationally? Let's say you've got a charter to launch internationally. What's the first thing you're going to do? What's the first thing you're going to do? Maxwell's typing. So is Artemis. Man, these are good. Laws and regulation checking, that's part of the due diligence. But before that, even Maxwell. Randy's typing. Do they have money? Are they going to spend it? Consider the market. Before all of this. Dedicated team. Before you start even picking up the phone or the pen or getting onto the computer, you have to have a dedicated team to launch into that country. Don't do any research until you have identified that team. And that could be one person, that could be 5 people, 10 people, whatever it is. You have to have a dedicated team before you start doing the research. You definitely have to have a team. Now, we talked, thank you guys. You guys did bring up some good points. Laws, regulations, these are some of the barriers to entry. Do they have money? Are they willing to spend it? What is it that's going to prevent you from coming into the country smoothly? What about customs? What about duties? What about tariffs? What about treaties? I think that's exactly what Maxwell was talking about. What about pricing? What will the market bear? And then when I talk about the market, I am talking about 3 different types of markets. Think of China and India. What are the 3 different types of markets I'm talking about? What are the 3 different types of markets that I'm speaking about? Excellent. And I see Randy and Tim also had the same answer as Ben. The black market, the gray market, and the legitimate market, right? The regular market, the official market. That's absolutely correct. 60% plus in India. The individuals are buying on the gray market. 70 plus in China on the gray market, coming in through the Trans-Siberian Railway. I think we gave an example of Philip Morris has something like 20+% of their annual revenue coming in from China, and yet they're only allowed to ship 1 container of cigarettes a month into China, and yet 20% of the revenue is coming from China. How does that happen? The gray market, right? The gray market. They're selling it to somebody in the Czech Republic or in Russia, and that's going right over into China, right into Asia. And it doesn't stop in China. It'll matriculate out into Indonesia, etc. India. All right, now, why is it, I have a question for you, why is it that we shouldn't worry about, and I'm not saying completely just say forget it, I'm just saying in general, why is it that we shouldn't be so panicked as the rest of our society? Why is it we shouldn't be so worried about the Middle East or OPEC countries cutting off their oil to us? Why is that a non, in my eyes, why is it a non-issue? There are a few reasons why. Give me a couple. Why is that possibly a non-issue? Why is that possibly a non-issue? I'll give you a hint. Petrodollars. Petrodollars. That's right. Petrodollars, as Randy is saying, are about 70+% of them are US dollars. Petrodollars is another word for US dollars. The remaining balance is going to be euros. It's probably closer to 80-85%. And where is it that they have their money? Where is it that they have their money? It's in Western banks. It's in, well, it could even be in Japanese banks. Could be in European banks. Could be in US banks. But they have their money in US banks because of Sharia law. Does not allow them to gain interest or loan money for interest. They do not have the absorptive qualities necessary to hold that amount of money. So they go on ahead and say, okay, we're going to cut off the oil, and you're going to do what? What's the U.S. government going to do? They would, first of all, they would never do that. I don't want to say never, but they wouldn't do that. Predominantly because, I mean, think about it right now in Iran. They're trying to get oil out. They are trying to get oil out. They're doing everything they can to get oil out of their country. I lost my train of thought there. I just saw a comment.
The U.S. is a hedge fund, which hurt them more
Yeah.
than us to cut this off.
It hurts them much more than it hurts us because we have their funds. We would essentially say, okay, you keep your oil and now we have your money. You know, it's not going to happen.
Even if that wasn't the case, the U.S. couldn't hedge fund is in a stronger position to absorb that loss.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, well, we knew you were kidding, Randy. We knew you were kidding. But it's a fear that we have in the U.S. I mean, it's a big fear, isn't it? Isn't it this fear that we're too dependent on foreign oil?
The only way to expand the gas prices.
Yeah, right. It's the only way for them to explain the gas prices because you know that the oil companies and gasoline companies like British Petroleum and Exxon aren't going to say, hey, we haven't built a refinery in the last 40 years. Nobody wants to blame it on them. And then we always use the word we. And we assume that that's the government. We assume that we as well, you know, gas prices are high and we blame the government. Yeah, there's another reason why we can go to war, possibly. You know, it's not we, it's the corporations that control oil. Prices will come down on oil every day. They go up and down. They're about $100 a barrel right now. It's gasoline, the refining of oil into gasoline that makes your car go. That, my friends, is where the problem lies. That's why you haven't seen it, the price of gasoline move down commensurately. It's the refining of oil. The refining of oil. Yeah, we did invade Iraq over what many people say is oil. But, you know, everyone's opinion is going to be different, but I think we all know why we went into Iraq. Twice. Yeah, I mean, we had to have something there. We had to justify it somehow, right? The flag follows the dollar, people. The flag follows the dollar. The flag follows the dollar. Remember again, when you're talking about the flag follows the dollar, that you put in the flow of funds, the velocity of money, and that then you understand that banks control the debt. Banks control debt. Debt makes the world go round. So when you see the feds saying they're going to stop their quantitative easing, that essentially means that there's going to be less funds available, less money flowing around to the market, and banks are probably going to put more restrictions on the qualifications of those borrowers. You and me, as well as corporations. There is a song, "You Spin My Debt Right Round." That, you know, that song came out, I'm gonna date myself. That song came out when I was in the 8th grade. I don't know if you guys know that song. It doesn't go, "You spin my debt right round. You spin my world right round." I don't remember. But that song came out in the 8th grade. Still good music. That's when they still... Now, Ben, I want you to keep your A plus. You just... all right. Now, we talked a bit about... the dollar being strong or weak. What is it that you need to know? These are practical. These aren't just things that are going to be on your final exam tomorrow, but when you hear somebody say the dollar is strong or the dollar is weak, what is it that, yeah, there you go. Man, you guys are fast. Compared to what? Yeah. Past purchasing power of the dollar, other currencies, what? And when you hear somebody say, I was at an alumni meeting at Thunderbird. Every month we have a little alumni get together, and I go like once a year. And one of my buddies talked me into going, so I said, okay. We get there, and we're sitting there, we're eating, and there were some individuals that weren't part of our group, but they, we were eating with them, and they were nice. And one of the gentlemen said, so what do you think about the markets? He said, what do you think the market's going to do? That's what he said. What do you think the market's going to do? And in a chorus, 3 of us looked at him and said, what market are you talking about? There are so many different markets that we have learned about in this class. Currencies, that's foreign exchange. The stock market. The debt market, which is what makes the world go round. The gray market, the black market, the legitimate market. What market is he talking about? I don't know. We all in a chorus said, what market are you talking about? What market? Which one? The stock market? Okay, but you have to be specific, and don't be afraid to politely ask the question. And we said it polite. We said it in a chorus, but it was polite. We live in a global world. The dollar is strong against what? Or weak against when and what? Be specific. Don't be afraid to show your intelligence, to show your knowledge. Because you can't answer the question. You can't answer the question. What do you think the market's going to do? I can't answer that unless you tell me which market you're talking about. And then in currencies, are you talking about, okay, the US dollar in relation to what? the ruble, the rupee, the dinar, the yen, the euro? Are you talking about commodities? We talked about the commodity markets, and we bifurcated the commodity markets into precious metals and into cotton, corn, pork bellies, things along those lines. Part of your takeaways of this class is to define more clearly what the world looks like. And that's why I talk in terms of markets, not so much countries, although it is important to know all the rules and regulations of each country in terms of tariffs and treaties and whatnot. But in our vernacular, we're talking about markets. What market are we talking about? Don't be afraid to use your newfound knowledge and ask people to be more specific. And now we have a better context, a better idea of what the world looks like. Now, we talked a little bit about the story. And I'm going to go back to it a little bit right now. We talked a little bit about the story. The story what? I want you to finish my sentence. The story what? The story blank, one word. The story sells. And that's why we need to be empathetic. We need to empathize, because when we're talking to another culture or another market, we need to be able to communicate in a way that resonates with them. And oftentimes it's stories. Marketing, there you go. This is marketing. Anybody can tell you, let me tell you this right now, anybody can come up to me and give me a contract. Here are the terms of our supply chain agreement. I am the buyer, you're the seller. You're the vendor. Any vendor can come and give me these terms. Does that mean I'm going to do business with you? In other countries, they want to know if you're the vendor and giving them the contract. They want to know you. That's why there's that 3 to 5 days, possibly 7 days of getting to know you, getting to know your business. You are the face of your organization. They don't care about the piece of paper. They only care about the piece of paper after they have gotten to know you. These are your soft skills, your ability to listen. This is what international business is. If it was that easy, you would not need relationships. You would not need soft skills. You would not need anything other than the piece of paper. That's just not how business is done. It's just not how business is done. The story sells, but look at it and look at that mosaic and say, well, how many different colors do I need to put into that? How much do I need to know about that culture? How much do I need to know about that market? And you'll be able to paint the picture. You'll be able to give it to them, so you're not just giving them a copy of the contract. People love, let me give you an example. So the other day, I had my windows tinted on the Land Cruiser that I am obsessed with. And it was yesterday. And I happen to know the gentleman who was doing the tinting. And he was doing it so quickly, and he had so much skill And you might not think window tinting, but I actually sat out there in the heat talking with him, really just so that I could watch the precision and the skill and the speed at which he was able to use this blade and all the little motions. And for me, I'd never seen it done, so it was somewhat interesting. But it's the same in business. It's the same in international business. If you can show more skill, more soft skills, more precision, more professionalism, more story, you can share more story. I mean, that's what people want. People are in awe of people that have charisma, or that have even, you don't even have to be that terribly charismatic. You just have to be empathetic and know that you're going to have to generate some interest, and that could be in the form of a story. Tell them where you're from. So you say, well, be more specific. Tell them where you're from. Tell them what you like to do. Do you like to go camping? Do you live in an area where it's cold or warm or hot? What's it like there? That's what they want to know. The first 3 to 5 days, are you talking about empanadas? All right? And that was good. That was a good bite. The last bite is always the best, isn't it? That's strange. Why do we do that? I have never seen anyone. I'm going to take a second here and pause it. I've never seen a psychologist. For those of you who are going into psychology, I want to see somebody write an article on why it is that when we eat, we always eat around and save the very last bite. We nibble on it in such a way that we know that the very last bite has all of the fixings on it. Does anybody else do that besides me? No? Like, think of a hamburger. Think of a hamburger. I always kind of bite around, and then it's, but then the last piece I know is got it all. It's got the ketchup, it's got the mustard, it's got the onions, the mushrooms, the jalapeno, it's got everything. Am I the only one that does that? Ben says yes. You finish with the best taste in your mouth. That's why. See, so Tim does it. I don't know. Think about it the next time you're eating something, think about whether or not you do that. Ben, I'm willing to bet you do it with something. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just a weird bird. All right, now. There you go. See, his soft skills just came through. All right, now, something we didn't talk about too much, but I wanted to bring it up. And this is a generalization, and typically I'm not too keen on generalizing people, cultures, etc. But in this case, I'm going to use the context of art. In Asian countries, they're very collective. And so you see the themes in art, there's no central figure. It's a landscape. They're typically landscapes. Think of the Chinese art. Think of P.F. Chang's. You walk into P.F. Chang's and you see a giant mural and you wonder, how many of you have gone into a P.F. Chang's and wondered, where does this start? Or who is the central figure? What is this entire landscape centered around? And you can't find it. You can't find it. You don't see a central figure. Now in the U.S., or I should say in Western cultures, European and Western cultures, you see a lot of portraits. And even in the landscape, you see a central focus on maybe the butterfly in the landscape. Collective versus individual. In the West, we are more individualistic. In the East, they are more collective. How does that affect your negotiations? How does that affect your ability to do business? Just knowing the difference is an advantage. Just knowing the difference is an advantage. Think about, so let me say that in Northern Europe, they're collective. And we saw what happened with Walmart. Walmart did not realize that they were somewhat of a collective society, meaning that although they may not be laborers or part of a union on the wharf, they were part of a union. And when Walmart came in and said, hey, forget this unionization stuff, we're going to do it our own way, the other unions, the other people in these other unions decided we're not going to shop there. Individuals said, I am not going to shop there. And they starved Walmart out. They did not give them that revenue. They refused to do, they were a collective society that all boats rise together. And essentially they ended up having to walk out. Walmart ended up having to walk out. Kind of like the Borg. That's a Star Trek term, right? That was Artemis. Artemis, I have a question. Your grade may hinge on this question, Tim. This may be a Tim and Chris and Maxwell question, possibly Randy. What is Captain Kirk's middle name?
Oh, come on.
What is Captain Kirk's middle name? Artemis, you could not. Artemis, you weren't supposed to say it. Tiberius. Right? Tiberius. It's so funny because I'm a big Star Trek fan, but I really watched the Star Trek reruns from the 60s. I watched them in the 70s and the late 70s. And so when I say Star Trek, I have some people that have said, well, which generation? The beginning, the middle, or, the Captain Kirk generation, Captain Picard, or what is it now? It's still Captain Kirk, right? But but he's young, right? Anyway. The T.J. Hooker generation, right. Woody on Cheers, that's his middle name. Are you serious? Is that true? Is that true? That is so funny. That is so funny that Woody, I didn't see that episode. That was one of my favorite episodes of all time. Woody Tiberius, what was his last name? Harrelson. Oh no, what is it? Woody Boyd? Yeah, there you go. Boyd. Yeah. What is what is WTV? What the Boyd? No, I don't know. All right, moving right along. What's that? Oh, what the bleep? Okay. Oh, I like that. What does repatriation mean? Tell me what repatriation means. I hear people go through a whole sentence. What is repatriation? Bringing back money made overseas. That's absolutely right. It's so funny. The last few days I've had some conversations with some other individuals, and they said, they didn't say repatriation. They said companies are leaving money overseas and they're not bringing it back here. And I thought, well, why don't you just say companies aren't repatriating their money? You know, and it's two and a half, one dozen the other, but I think that your vernacular tells a lot about what it is that you're talking about. Repatriation. Now, what is a tax neutral jurisdiction? Tell me what a tax neutral jurisdiction is. What's that? Switzerland. Now, Switzerland isn't fully tax neutral, but you have ways where you can bring effectively your tax liability down to below 6, 7, 8%. Yeah, that's right. There are a lot of companies headquartered in Switzerland. And the founder and CEO, this just came out yesterday, the founder and CEO of IKEA had not been back to, I think it's Sweden, in 40 years. He left to evade taxes. They formed their corporate headquarters. They switched their corporate headquarters to Switzerland. And he had not been back there for 40 years. He just went back. Now, I don't know if he was going back for trial. I don't know if he was going back because he'd given a couple of $1 billion and they were going to, essentially let him off the hook. I don't know what he was going back. I don't know how he went back. I don't know if they were going to arrest him or not. I didn't get to read the whole article. Florida, Texas, Washington have no personal income tax. Yeah, the problem is you have to live in Florida and Texas. Just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah, there are other, they're not tax neutral jurisdictions. What I'm talking about is, have you ever heard of the islands of Jersey or Guernsey? Somewhat commonwealths and they're off the coast of France, but they're a commonwealth of the United Kingdom. Jersey and Guernsey. Jersey is, I believe, the credit exchequer, the head of their finance in Jersey is Colin Powell. Yeah, Colin Powell. But there's small commonwealths that are owned by the United Kingdom, or that are run by the United Kingdom, and they are tax havens. Pardon? And a great shoreline. That's right. That's right. The Cayman Islands are absolutely tax havens. The U.S. government is cracking down on this. And I think rightly so. I think rightly so. A lot of people complain about corporate taxes. If you're complaining about corporate taxes, it's because you don't have a corporation. What do I mean by that? Corporations, the corporate tax rate, I believe, is around 35% right now. Let's just say it's 40% for whatever reason. Corporations have ways of lowering their tax liability that you and I don't. Depreciation, amortization are a couple. So they're paying 40% of what number? Are they paying 40% of this number, or are they paying after depreciation and amortization? Are they paying 35% of this number? And then here is zero. For those of you who believe that corporations are unduly taxed, I would pose an argument that you learn why it is that corporations, sure, they're paying still 35%, but of what number? Of what number? And you see Ireland as a corporate tax haven also. The Celtic Tiger is what Ireland was known for. They lowered their taxes, and they experienced a huge boom in business. Intel went over there. They experienced a huge boom in the 90s. And now they've got brain drain going on. All of their youth, everybody's leaving. The corporate tax havens don't always have all the goodies that you think that they might. You know, they don't have all of the best stuff all the time. The Celtic Tiger is now more like a Celtic house cat, right? And their taxes are so low that their infrastructure is failing. Their infrastructure is not nearly as good as what it should be. We also spoke about strategy, tactics, planning, and execution, STPE. Strategy, tactics, planning, and execution. I want you to know the difference. This is what I want you to remember about STPE. I just want you to remember the difference between strategy and tactics. Strategy is the war. What war is it that we're in, and what is it that we want to win? Tactics are the execution, really, of it. Identifying where it is that you're going to go, what it is you need to be. The planning is the path, and then execution is just doing it. But tactics are really how you're going to win that war. What are the battles that you need to fight to win the war? Okay, what are the battles you're going to fight to win the war? And with that said, I think I'm going to go into the final exam. The final exam is going to be cumulative. It will essentially be all of the quizzes, including the midterm, put together. There are no tricks. There are no questions that we have not discussed. One thing I would say, this is one question that I would say is going to be on the exam. How many countries are there part of the EU? 28. There are soon to be 28. For this class and for the intensive purposes of this class, on July 1st, Croatia becomes the 28th technically through ceremony. Yes, the final is on the 28th. So for this class, it's going to be 28. This is the difference between technical and practical. Technical and practical. Some of you may fight this. And the reason why I do this, the reason why I'm doing this specifically is because in international business, you may be technically correct, but it might not be practical. You follow me? It might not be practical. Who cares if it's 2 days away or 3 days or 4 days away? Right? Does it mean that much? No. From what I understand, it's already been codified. The ceremony happens on July 1st, and everybody's signature, and then the pens are handed out, and blah, blah, blah. But know the difference between, and know when to be technical, and know when to be practical. So on the exam, if you put 27, I will mark it wrong. Technically, you're correct, but in all practical purposes, it's 28. Okay? Oh, in 99, 98, 99.
Yeah,
Yeah, 2000. Oh, yeah, it was like 2000, 2001. Yeah.
And but couple of pretty funny. A couple guys got watched it rewind that bank are trying to exchange euros for the old German money because they'd taken pictures from the newspapers what the new money was going to look like. They were trying to exchange it for the old money.
Oh, and then going to go back
And
and.
they would go back to the bank and switch it. But then they obviously figured practically, why would somebody need to exchange the new money for the old money?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Good point. Good point. All right. So the exam will be uploaded tomorrow. You will have, I believe I haven't decided because it's a bigger exam. You'll have probably the weekend. I don't think I'm going to change anything. So you'll have your notes, you'll have the recordings. And if you get that question wrong, 28 versus 27, then I'll know that you didn't watch the recordings. Oh, yeah, and the whole exam I'll be questioning. No, so anyways, last point again, I really appreciate the time. I appreciate your participation very much. Again, it has been my honor. It has been a privilege to transfer some of my international business to you. I thank you very much for allowing me to do that. If you can, I think that I'm being bombarded with emails to ask you to rate me on the surveys, as well as. Oh, do you? Oh, okay. I thought it was just me.
Daily email.
Okay. You know where I really want you guys to put it is I want you to put it on ratemyprofessor.com. Exactly. ratemyprofessor.com. Thank you, Maxwell. It's a very nice gesture. I would too. And that is my email. Feel free again to contact me anytime. Do not think you are bothering me. If I feel like you are calling me to learn, that is the biggest compliment you could give me. I would love to try to figure things out with you. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Maxwell. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Artemis. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Tim. And for a tech question, yes. For a technical question, that one as well. Thank you guys. Over and out. Sayonara. Have a great summer, and I will see you guys in the next class in fall. We celebrate the 4th of July, but it was signed in August. Is that true? I didn't know that. That our independence was signed. Yeah, that's right. It was signed in August, but the 4th of July is significant in something. Is that when the battle? I don't know. So it's a Declaration of Independence argument.